Hi everyone, welcome back to a new video. This time I am going to explain the cultivation levels in Battle Through the Heavens. A new video to cover all the points so that you can enjoy watching this awesome Dawnhua Do realms. This is a ranking according to how strong the person is in this land. Whoever has strength has dignity. Without strength you are nothing. As you train your Do level, you gain status and class within each Do class. There are levels indicated as stars. When you reach 9 stars you have the potential to advance your class. 9-star dosha will advance to dosha with his next increase. Break through the gap between each star will increase as one advances to higher classes, and the difficulty of advancing would also increase. 0 Do Chi Do Disciple Do Chi was essential towards being a Do Chi is split into 10 different stages. And when the body acquires 10 stages of Do Chi it can better condense the Do vortex, becoming a well-respected to the 8th to the 9th Dua Chi is the beginning of Do bottleneck stage. First level Dosha Do practitioner Do Chi and 9 Dua Chi had different nature. The energy assimilated before becoming a Do was actually called Do Chi. After becoming a Dosha, the assimilated energy was now known as True Do Chi, though there was but a one-word difference between their names. The true difference was more like comparing heaven to earth, completely incomparable. After making the breakthrough to become a Dosha, one would possess the qualifications to practice a Chi method. After practicing a technique, the attribute less milky white dough within the body would change into the same attribute as the practice technique. One did not need too much time for the first Do change, barely 2 hours. Second level Dosha Do master manipulating the Do Chu into an energy clock that was attached to the body was the mark of a Do. This energy cloak not only strengthened the owner's defense speed and attack, it also improved the owner's absorption of energy from his or her surroundings so that the energy exhausted during a fight would be supplemented. Hence almost every Dosha's first action during a battle would be to call upon this Do Chi clock. The vortex of a Dosha was like a bloodline, while the Do was like the air that was contained within the balloon. This balloon had a critical point that belonged to it, and once the Doya contained reached the point where it was full, it would no longer be able to contain any excess Do Chi. If one wanted to forcefully push more in, the vortex would pop like a balloon and explode with a bang. When promoting from a Dosha to a Dosha, the biggest benefit was that the filled Do Chi in the bloodline would undergo a transformation, changing into droplets of liquid energy with far denser, more complex and pure energy than just simple Do Chi. Once the Do Chi underwent the transformation, the quality and quantity of Do Chi contained within the balloon would instantly expand tremendously. Hence, by having this enormous Do Chi storage, a Do was naturally far superior. A Do could just not compare. In addition, with regards to the class and purity of their Do Chi, they were entirely different. A Do Chi cloak, the symbol of a Do, was one of the most practical skills of a Do. Moreover, the Do cloaks that Doa had summoned out did not have any effect on speed, defense, attack, etc. Only after becoming a Doa with the cloak that was summoned out be equipped with this ability to aid in battle, something that all doers third level Da Dosha Do Grandmaster on the Do Chi continent. Most people upon reaching the Do would be able to emit Do Chi out of their body. For example, they could use their Dui to cover their weapons and greatly increase their offensive strength. Materializing Do Chi could only be achieved by those who had attained at least the Da Dosha level. Anyone that became a Da Dosha was at least a power to be reckoned with. With that kind of strength, most places would probably rush for recruitment. This little thing was the most crucial object to becoming a Da Dosha. The strong people of the Da Dosha class normally called it Do Crystal. In the eyes of many strong people, only when one possessed a Do crystal could one be considered to have truly stepped into the hall of Do Chu training. This little thing was a crystal formed by all the Do Chi contained within one's body. Within it, it contained a large amount of energy that would shock people. Fourth level Do Ling Do Spirit Do Chi agglomerating into objects, the mark of a Do Ling. It was a specialized ability of a strong person at the Do Ling class or above, just like the Do Chi of a Dosha and the Do Chi armor of a Do Chi. The lethality of this kind of Ku Chi gated item would undoubtedly have an extremely powerful effect when used in combination with Do techniques in the Ku Chi continent. Only with the strength of a Do Ling can one leave the ground and fly for a short distance. Only after one's strength had reached that of a Do Wong or Do Huang can one use the Do Chi to form a pair of energy wings on one's back. These wings would enable them to overcome their bond to the ground and fly amongst the clouds. When they reach the Do Ling level, they would be able to condense and form weapons and armors made completely of Do Chi. These kinds of weapons and protections were naturally something that an ordinary weapon or armor could not compare to measurement method of the Do Ling class. The urchin Do crystal in body had initially 9 levels. Thorns. It appeared that each time one's strength advanced once a level, energy Thorn would shrink back into the Soch and Do crystal according to this. Guess it was likely that one would be truly able to reach the Do Wong class when she had absorbed all of the 9 energy thorns into that sea urchin Do crystal. 5th level Do Wong Do King Do Chi transformation into wings was basically an extremely symbolical result in the training of Do Chi. This symbol represented a natural barrier in becoming a strong person on the continent. Everyone clearly knew that as long as one was able to transform Do Chi into wings, it represented that one would be able to enter into the class that caused countless number of people to halt their progress. Do One. The simplet Wo words were the symbol which countless numbers of talented individuals had trained hard to achieve. However, the hardship that these 2 words represented caused most of the people to halt their progress before reaching that stage. Finally, these people would quietly withdraw. Do Ling and Do Wong were merely separated by class. However, the difference between them was larger than any of the class differences before them. Those of the Do Ling class or the classes before it could only squander the Do Chi in their body to fight with others, although people like Xiao Yan may have Do Chi that was stronger and purer in their body. Regardless of how powerful one's Do Chi was, there would be a time when it would be exhausted, and there would be a limit to its strength as long as one entered the Dong class. However, the Do Chi in one's body would begin to respond with the new endless majestic energy in the vast outside world, and vice versa. It would maneuver this energy, transforming it for his own use. It was not impossible for that terrifying energy to tear the mountains and split the ground. From this, it was sufficient to see the difference between the 2. One relied on the strength of one's body, while the other maneuvered the natural energy. At a glance, it would be obvious just which was stronger and which was weaker. Normally speaking, as long as one was able to rely on one's own doi to agglomerate into a pair of wings, one would be able to be called a strong person, who would definitely become a Do Wang if one could agglomerate a pair of Do wings and pause or even fly for a period of time in midair. That person would be a true strong Do Wang. However, the precondition of all of these was the strength of the original body. Relying on some ability of one's Chi method was not included in this category. 6th level Do Huang Do Emperor. When one reached the Do Huang class, one could already use the Do Chi in one's body to resonate with natural energy during battle. After that, one could control these energies and unleash an incomparably terrifying force. This was also the reason why only Do Huang possessed a destructive force that horrified people. The training of a Do practitioner started off with training the body first. After the body was trained until it reached the pinnacle, the Do Chi in one's body would be able to resonate with the natural energy of the same affinity and finally achieve the aim of controlling it all. Do practitioners, nearly without exception, felt both respect and yearning in their hearts toward this realm before entering this realm. One person may be able to block 10, block 100, block 1,000. But the strength of a person would always reach a point when it was exhausted. Only by reaching the realm of controlling the natural energy could the idea of one person taking on 10,000 not be an illusion like the moon in the water of the flower in the mirror, ending as it began. Tens of thousands of soldiers would all turn to ashes. Of course, nothing was ever absolute. There were also some strong people who gave up the opportunity to resonate with the natural energy. They chose to repeatedly strengthen their own flesh once they had trained their physical flesh until it transformed. Their punches and kicks could break the land and shatter space. Their destruction strength would not be smaller than controlling the natural energy. Instead, it could be even greater. However, just by strengthening one's flesh, the extent of difficulty of the training would be even greater than that of the former. Moreover, the intense pain that training one's flesh created made it really difficult for people whose mind was not firm to persist on. The advancement from a Dong to a Do Huang was not an ordinary matter. The advancement to this class required an unusually great amount of energy. Such a majestic amount of energy was naturally not something that could be achieved within a short period of time. Hence, one could only rely on accumulating energy for a long time in order to complete the transformation process. The gap between a Do Wang and a Do Huang is extremely large. Normally speaking, even if one possessed the strength to break through, one would require half a year or even a year in order to truly be able to undergo the transformation. 7th level Do Zone Do Ancestor Do Zone He. True point. When one could be considered a genuine expert on the continent only by successfully reaching this level would one gain the prerequisite that allowed one to survive In the central plains, walking through the air was a unique indicator of an elite Do zone. If one's strength had reached the level of a Do zone, almost every portion of one's body, including even a strand of hair, would be able to become a sharp killing weapon. There was a massive gap between every star within the Do zone class, hence the classification within the expert Do zones were a little more detailed. In the central plains, every star was divided into 4 levels. They were entry, intermediate, advance, and peak. However, such differentiation was too subtle, hence very few people would measure another in such a manner. However, it was quite useful when using it to measure one's own strength. A 9-star Do Huang might only have a 1-star gap with a Do zone, but this 1 star was enough to cause a countless number of outstanding individuals to stop at this level forever, all the way until they die. They can use spatial strength, which is a mysterious strength that one needed to reach the Do zone class in order to be barely able to control before reaching that class. Even an expert at the peak of the Do Huang class did not possess the qualification to control it. 8 Dokzong Do Venerate Do zone. That was a level that was even further and more frightening than a Do zone. At that level, one was already a top person on the continent. Their methods were far from what an elite Do zone could compare with. They were actually able to use space, something which was ethereal and invisible, to do whatever they pleased. After advancing to a Do zone, one is able to continuously absorb the natural energy and turn it into Do Chi and her body. They can also train while traveling. The gap between each star within the Do zone class was far from what an ordinary person could imagine. It was a kind of extremely fixed hierarchical system. It was quite difficult for someone in the Do zone class to challenge another of a higher level. The moment the Do Chi within the body of an expert at the peak of the Do zone class showed signs of being full and could no longer be increased was the moment the 9 changes began. One would then need to shrink and suppress the Do Chi within one's body. Only then would the interior of one's body have enough space to accept new Do Chi. One needed to perform this compression once the Do Chi became filled. Again, this cycle would repeat heat, and only after 9 suppressions would it reach a complete state. The Do Chi within one's body would experience a change in quality under each compression. Only then would one cross over the unmeasurable skylight gap and advance to the Xin class. Due to this, some of the experts who had reached this stage would describe the training hidden at the peak of the Do zone class as 9 changes. One could only become a Shen saint after 9 changes. It was easy to talk about these 9 changes, but they would really test one's limits. Just imagine the frightening amount of Do expert at the peak of the Do zone class could contain that needed to be filled, and filled 9 times. Such a requirement was indeed worthy of the description. Horrifying. A Do zone can create wormholes through space, using their spatial strength to travel great distances in short time. 8.5 Ban Shen half Saint Shen. This level was called an abyss of despair by many experts at the peak of the Do zone class. Most of the experts in this world who had reached the peak of the Do zone class ended up halting at the edge of this Ban Sin class. Regardless of how they trained, they were unable to truly step into this so-called Ban Sin class. Only by stepping into the Bang Shen class would one be able to possess the qualification to step into the Do class. One could even say that Bang Shen was the most important foundation stone before one stepped into the Dun class. If one was unable to enter the Bang Shen level, one could forget about ever becoming a genuine elite Doang, while Do Di was gradually becoming a legend that existed only in history. The simple Bang Shen word represented the peak of this entire world. An elite Do Zun could be considered to be top experts of this continent. However, the top ultimately did not represent the peak. The peak of this world belongs to those experts of an even higher class. Ban Shen, although there was a Ban half word, it was still related to the Sheng word, which represented the peak. This was a transforming leap. There was only a 1-word difference between a Bang Sheng and a Do Zun, but there was a relatively frightening gap between the two. Although an elite Bang Sheng could also be called a, since they possessed a strength that far surpassed that of an elite peak Do Zun, they could only be strictly described as a fake Sheng. Only when one truly reached the 1-star level could one be called a genuine. The Do Sheng class was separated into the initial, intermediate, and high levels. These levels appeared small, but it was difficult if one wished to leap across them. 9 Dun Du Saint to peak existence among even top-tier powerhouses. The Doang is a realm so broken that logic starts to fail here. A 1-star Do Zun can easily overpower Do Zone peak of Do Sheng. A 2-star can easily defeat a Onia, and so on. Upon attaining the 6-star, a practitioner can open a separate realm for others to inhabit, and the 7th can utilize all the Do Chi within those realms, effectively becoming the world. A Dun is representative of the peak of the world with no other existence coming close to that. Any casual action of a DO-DI can demolish cities, shatter mountains, and destroy space itself. Any experts who reach the DO-DI class are basically standing on the peak of the Do-Chi continent. At this level, one would have already surpassed the ordinary and would have stepped into the holy level. The strength that one would possess would naturally be far from what an ordinary person can imagine. Opening a realm where people could live is an indicator of an elite done. The reason an elite done was so powerful was not because of the great strength of their Do-Chi. Instead, it was because they could maneuver the naturally energy without restraint to attack and defend. They are able to create realms on their own so that people could live inside. Just imagine someone strong enough to create their own worlds. Do-Di, highest realm of Do-Chi cultivation in the Do-Di continent, equivalent to the sovereign stage in the Great Thousand World. A Do-Di has the ability to change their own bloodline, benefiting their descendants, and can single-handedly revive an entire race. They can absorb the heavens and earth into their bodies, forming the DOD body, towering tens of thousands of jangs high with power, capable of piercing through the heavens. Do-Di, this was a form to address the ruler of this world. The value of anything even the least bit related to this name would soar. This point was something that could be identified from just watching the GU clan. The blood of a Do-Di flowed in the bodies of the members of the GU clan. This had resulted in the current position of the GU clan on the Do-Chi continent. Although no one dared call it unique, it could definitely be considered among the peak. Anything that was even the least bit related with the word D in this world would be synonymous with being strong. It did not matter whether it was a Do-Di or a D-tier medicinal pill. All of these were supreme in the eyes of everyone. Similarly, the D-state soul also belonged in this category. D-tier medicinal pill DI state soul. Amongst the three types of DI, there was a much higher possibility of one reaching the third given the current condition of the continent. After all, this level did not require one to absorb the so-called origin chi. However, this did not mean that one could easily advance into the D state soul. It is rumored that if a person is able to reach the DOD class, their bloodline will undergo a change. His descendants will benefit as a result. There were quite a number of god clans in the ancient times. Although they could be considered humans, they possessed a rich talent when it came to training. Some of those who were lucky might even inherit some Do abilities through their bloodline. However, such a thing is extremely rare and will completely depend on one's luck. These clans that possess an ancient Do-Di bloodline greatly discriminate against outsiders due to them needing to maintain the purity of their bloodline. Even if they were to marry an ordinary human, they would definitely choose an extremely outstanding person. There were quite a number of clans in the ancient times who possessed the bloodline of a Do. However, with the flow of time, it seems that hardly any remained. The survivors are called the extremely mysterious ancient clans. The bloodline of a Do-Di might be powerful, but it does not last forever. There is a time when it will run out. To continue preserving the bloodline, another Do-Di needs to appear and provide the bloodline with energy in life. Those who possess the DOD bloodline indeed have a smooth training path. However, this speed halts just before the Do-Di class. Even though an ancient clan like the GU clan possesses many elite gods, there aren't many people who can step into the Do class. If one wishes to advance to that level, one can only on oneself. At such a moment, the god bloodline becomes a burden. Those who have the first generation Do-Di bloodline would be blessed with the greatest benefit. Hence, if a new ancient clan had appeared, it would definitely turn the Do-Chi continent into an uproar. The entire Do-Chi continent viewed the continuation of one's bloodline as extremely important. This was especially the case for these top experts. They greatly wanted their bloodline to continue. An elite Do-Di could incorporate the world in their bodies. At that time, they would be the world. Just the lift of a hand could destroy the universe. It might was extremely great and terrifying. This huge body was not formed from energy. Instead, it was a firm actual body. One could just imagine how terrifying the aura of a 100,000 kilometers body was. This kind of ability is referred to by the others as the god body. This was because one could only use it after reaching the god. This video will end here. Thank you for watching.